I don't like riding horses after my experience on Journey Across Japan where I sat on it and it tried to throw me off and kick me in the face.
Wow.
Hello, welcome to the Abroad in Japan podcast. Probably the best way of learning about life in Japan without actually being in Japan. I'm your host, Chris Broad, and we're joined as always by Agent Krasnov himself, Mr. Pete Dawson. Pete, how the devil are you doing? What's going on?
Who the hell is Agent Krasnov? He sounds like he's from a Bond film or something.
That's the code name for Trump.
Is it?
From the Russian media gave him as the KGB called him Krasnov.
Krasnov. I wonder what that's in reference to. That's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, it's been a busy week, hasn't it? Really.
Can I just say though, why do you even own a suit? Like, why are you on the podcast, Pete?
Yeah, I know. It's a good point.
Wear a suit.
Yeah.
Do you own one?
I'm wearing a Hellcat Records t-shirt because my music is at war. Yeah, it's been a funny old week, hasn't it? It's one side will say that they're protecting certain interests, and the other side will say,
I'm done being euphemistic. I've watched Trump and JD Vance shred America's reputation in an incredible scale at massive speed. It's ruthless. It's ridiculous. And just this morning when I woke up, I saw Elon Musk post something about NATO, America not being in NATO, and then Trump was like, "We got a big announcement tomorrow." So by the time viewers are enjoying this, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization that stood for 70, 80 years might well be a thing of the past. So.
The American president is a Russian asset. Like, there's no two ways of saying
here's
it.
The thing.
You can say that's a European view, but he's been very clear about NATO since he ran for president in the 80s.
There's two ways to look at it, though. He's a Russian asset, or he's not, but he's literally doing everything a Russian asset would do, if not better. And it's astonishing stuff.
If it quacks like a duck, if it quacks like a Russian asset, my God.
It's horrifying.
Somebody's got some pictures, some compromat somewhere, I tell you what. But then, what compromat can you have the unashamable? What compromising photographs could you have someone who is literally unashamable? It's astonishing. And I don't know. I'm sure the comments will be on fire and it'll all probably be pointed at me because I'm a lefty wet liberal, etc., as they usually are. But
lefty liberal nonsense.
But it has been. It really put me off my fish and chips on a Friday night. I watched it while I was waiting for the fish and chips to turn up, and I was like, that's the worst thing they've done. Like, I'm usually like seeing them at the bottom of their barrel. But this kind of new JD Vance kind of character who very much set the trap, wanted to get everything done in the Oval Office that day, with Marco Rubio just sat there trying to disappear into a chair. It was an astonishing scene, and it was astonishing. Really put me off my bottle of Prosecco and fish and chips and episode of Severance. Thank you. So very upsetting. We're all concerned.
I felt angry, disappointed, a bit upset. I felt sorry just watching Zelensky sink into his chair while Trump ranted on like a prick like he normally does. I don't care anymore. I don't care if I lose subscribers, viewers, whatever, if I speak my mind on Donald Trump and his cronies. Like, they are shredding America's reputation. And I feel sorry for American friends, viewers. Trump's aim was to come to America, boost the stock market, make the rich richer, and he's not even done that. At least keep the rich richer, Trump. The stock market's plummeting because he's got these stupid fucking tariffs and made an enemy of everyone like Canada. Like, Canada's their biggest trading partner, one of them, and they've just flushed it down the toilet with their reputation. Well,
Justin Trudeau's got a meeting with our very important king, as we call him, the VIK. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens when it comes to Canadian sovereignty, because obviously we got a little bit of skin in the game there as well for the empire.
And it was kind of heartwarming seeing Zelensky thrown out the White House, and very sad. But then he had a very warm welcome in the UK and a nice old cuddle with Keir Starmer.
Yeah,
and
you can't fire cuddles at the Russians though. That's the problem, isn't it? And Georgia will be next, and Lithuania will be next, and Lithuania, let's not forget, is a NATO country. So that's very... The entirety of European security has been predicated on US involvement for the next 4 years. They're not going to be involved. So probably World War III then, lads. All right, yeah, cool.
I get that, America has paid far too much for European defence. I think, of course, the Europeans need to get their shit together and actually start taking care of their defence. But this isn't the way to do it, to throw it all under a bus very quickly, very fast, and leave Europe exposed potentially if America pulls its troops, pulls its weapons out. If I was a European country without nuclear weapons, that would be top of my list right now. How can we acquire some nuclear weapons?
Yes.
And luckily, the UK's got a submarine at sea carrying 30 warheads at any one time, which is always reassuring. But it's all very sad, all very disappointing, and I feel it's sorry for America. It's only 2 months into his presidency, and he's taking a wrecking ball to everything, while Elon Musk shreds just about everything. Like, I saw veterans had their pay decimated and all sorts. It was just... There's no winner except Elon Musk at this point.
The midterms are coming, guys. The GOP will probably turn on him at some point. If he'll probably have fallen out with Musk at some point. It's just he's just all about ratings, and if he can get more eyeballs on the product, and the product is unfortunately the future of the future security of the world, he's happy. He serves that whole kind of sorry display in the Oval Office was a display for his voters, for his MAGA base.
Yeah.
That's only half the country. Like,
And it didn't come off well. But of course, Elon Musk, Tesla's sales have gone in half in Europe in the last 2 months compared to the year before.
I'm sure he'll be able to feather his nest with some kind of investment from the government.
Cheeky deal. Like, most of his money was made from government deals. It's all very ominous and disappointing and sad. And whenever I or you or anyone I know here talks about American politics, people are like, well, it's our country, it doesn't affect you. Well, it does. American politics affects everyone because they're the leader of the free world, or were. I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but it's unfortunate. It's sad. My American friends are mortified for the most part. I think, I knew a couple of friends who voted for Donald Trump, of course, and don't think they're overly happy. But meanwhile in Japan, they're a bit like, oh shit, what's going to happen here then? Because the Prime Minister here, he's a bit of a silly sausage bumbling around looking like he's lost half the time. I can't wait to see what he does or what he's like when he has to sit in a room with Donald Trump. It's going to be a train wreck because he's not Shinzo Abe. He doesn't have a special relationship with Donald Trump like Abe did.
A lot of these countries will, I'm not saying Japan will for obvious historical reasons, but it's only going to help China in the long run because they've got a bit of cash kicking around. And they, at this point, probably seem like a safer bet when it comes to getting into sort of trade relations or getting into, because they will actually follow through and do the things that they said they're going to do, which is the thing that people don't seem to like is unpredictability. And you do get that with despots. And at this point in time, we've got one as the American sort of God King president. And so it'll be, I mean, it'll be countries like China who'll sort of put the money behind a little bit of security here and there for wavering countries, I suppose. So,
I did see, I saw a member of the People's Liberation Army of China, a high-ranking military officer, who was like, "This is brilliant," along with Russian media, who are like, "Yeah, this is great." So we know who the winners are, and it isn't anyone who's been friends with America for the last 75 years. But we've got a story from Ben. He says, "Hello, Chris and Pete. A recent fax machine about store etiquette reminded me of a time from my first visit to Japan in fall 2022. I was wandering the streets of Shinjuku one night and found myself intrigued by a guitar store. Being a musician and having been away from an instrument for a few weeks, I walked in, promptly picked up one of the guitars, plugged it into an amp and began playing much like I would at a music store back home. That's pretty cool. After merely a couple of strums, a staff member appeared and promptly started scolding me for picking up an instrument and playing it without their permission. They said their store was not like America, and God, and that I should ask first before playing. In hindsight, that was probably fair enough. Despite the initial sell-off, the initial sell-off, is Elon Musk creeping back in. Despite the initial telling off, they polished their Gretsch guitar and handed it back to me, and I hope I pronounced Gretsch correctly there, nodding for me to play again. Thankfully now, I had their blessing, but it was clear that they didn't appreciate that I'd come unannounced to play a few licks of their guitar. Have you ever been to a music store in Japan? Would it be normal not to play the instrument before purchase, or was it perhaps that I'd taken them unawares? It was maybe one of the more embarrassing moments of my trip. Cheers from Seattle, guys. Ben. I think it's more just you took them by surprise, Ben. Like you're completely fine to play with instruments in the store. I think you just got to ask for permission.
Right. Okay.
More that than anything. It's not like America.
No, I mean the land of the free, and you just grab a guitar. I would say
guitar.
that like Gretches are usually hollow bodied, so it's probably louder than most. So if you picked up a normal electric guitar, they'd probably be absolutely fine with that because they'd barely be able to hear it. But I guess hollow bodies would make a bit of it's sort of semi-acoustic, I suppose, in a way. But the only sort of guitar shop I've ever been to was like a hard off that was selling obviously second-hand guitars. And the interesting thing was around like the acoustic socks section, there was like this humidifier, rather adorably, like loads of humidifiers set up so that it would keep the wood presumably in fine fettle. But you'd think that would sort of encourage like rotting and stuff, and maybe there's just not enough humidity in the. But apparently that was important to them. Maybe I should humidify my many guitars. Like working for a radio station and going out with somebody who works for a radio station, we do get guitars gifted quite a lot.
What?
Well, and then they're never nice, and they're always like signed by
banjos.
like Mika. Do you remember Mika who did?
Oh God, I couldn't stand Mika.
Guitar signed by
Everybody's in Love Today song and
big girls
lollipop song.
Big girls, you're beautiful. Yeah.
Maybe the worst artist of the 2000s to 2010.
Yeah, we've got a guitar signed by him and a couple of others, and it's just like
I'll burn it for you.
This is
I'll burn
just
it.
unworkable.
That's wood for the fireplace.
Yeah, I don't want to play it because I'll rub the words off, but also I don't really want to play it because Mika's guitar. I don't want it.
So wait, where do you keep this graffitied guitar?
In Sarah's little studio where she does her radio shows on Absolute Radio.
Does Sarah at least like this guitar and Mika?
She doesn't like either. She doesn't really play either. But
that's awkward. I hope she's not interviewing him anytime soon. Although his career sort of ended 15 years ago. But
actually, thinking about it, my favourite guitar, the Dan Electro, problematic one apparently, but the Dan Electro from like the 60s, I want to say, maybe 70s. They're plastic, so no humidity needed. So maybe it'll rot in different ways, but presumably no humidity needed.
As you needed the Pete Donaldson guarantee.
I'll keep you nice and dry. Pete Donaldson.
Well, on the subject of humidity and dry and fire,
Lordy, yes.
This week's news story is quite a surprise because I didn't know Japan even had wildfires.
Had a history of them, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've just come from North Japan, right, where I did a few things, filming, and we had the heaviest snowfall just about ever. It's extremely cold. And yet, up there in North Japan, they've just experienced and continuing to experience the worst wildfire of the last sort of 50 years. I've never knew this could be a thing. Can you fill us in, Pete? What's going on?
Well, authorities in Japan have warned that the country's biggest wildfire in decades is likely to spread after it damaged dozens of homes and forced more than 1,000 people to flee. Fires continue to rage a week after they broke out in the city of Ofanato on the northeast coast. Every news story we do on this show, there's another town or city I've never blooming heard of. There's so many little like wee cities in Japan. It's incredible. Weather officials are basically blaming it on an unusually dry winter and strong winds as well. The fire has spread through 2,100 hectares of land, damaged 84 homes, and forced nearly 1,500 residents to take refuge in school, gymnasiums, or other shelters. And a further 2,000 are staying with friends or relatives. It may have been responsible for the death of a man whose body was discovered on a road in the city last week. And they've mobilised a massive amount of like self-defense force troops and firefighters. They've really struggled to control everything. Like you said, they're probably not quite as used to it as a lot of places in like the west coast of America, for example. But it's absolutely destroyed so much land out there, severely damaging 84 houses. A lot of wood in those constructions, obviously as well. And I mean it's the latest of three that Iwata has experienced this month. And they've basically been asking the Prime Minister Ishiba for more and more firefighters. It's an astonishingly strange situation because, like you say, like we have this idea of like sort of North Japan being incredibly cold, incredibly, and I don't know why that feels like the sort of places where fires won't be able to sort of fester, I suppose. But it just didn't have enough rainfall. 2.5 millimeters of rainfall throughout February, which is incredibly low for anywhere in Japan, you'd probably say.
I mean, Ofinato, it's one of the sort of areas that got quite badly affected by the tsunami, along with areas like Rikuzen, Takata nearby. It's not far from Kesenuma, the town where I filmed with Ken Watanabe and his cafe, right? That's about, I think, 25, 30 minutes drive south of there. But, the area that's affected is quite... It's not an understatement to say it's very remote and a bit hard to access. The only good thing is because it's right on the sea, helicopters have been able to pick up water and ditch it over the land and whatnot. But it's a real tragedy, I mean, this is a region that it took a decade to get back up and running after it was wiped off the map by the tsunami, and now it stands in the firing line of a wildfire. I hope they can get it under control. But yeah, you have to remember, while our image of Japan in the north is snow and cold, it's a strange thing. Japan, when you think north, it's more, you got to think west, northwest. Japan is a sort of line drawn down the middle of it, right, that goes down the middle of the land. And there's the Ore mountain range, which cuts right down this sort of central spine of the country. And to the west of that, places like Akita, Yamagata, Niigata, extremely snowy. My God, get ready to build a snowman and buckle up. But on the other side, on the east coast, your Pacific coastline, your Iwate, your Miyagi, there is no snow really. There's no snow at all, and it is quite dry, and the weather is nice. Sendai and Tokyo, for example, some of the nicest winter weather you could possibly have. It's a wonderful temperature. So yeah, that's why it's happened here. And as I say, I hope they get it under control, because I really didn't know. I've never heard of this happening in Japan in all my years here.
Yeah, it's approaching the destruction that was experienced in LA this year, which is obviously absolutely insanely destructive and really problematic. But it's getting up there, and we've done this show for a few years, and I can't remember ever doing a story about the wildfires in Japan, really. So
yeah, I mean, obviously it's less publicised than LA, the location, but the size of the land is huge, and I just hope it doesn't make it into the town of Ofinato, because luckily it's not burnt its way into the town yet. But I'd encourage you to look up some footage of it and see it for yourself, guys, just how bad things are. And it's the town of Ofunato, Ofunato. But yeah, thoughts are with everyone up there. We'll be back in just a moment, guys, with your stories, comments and questions in the fax machine.
Wow.
Now we're back with the fax machine. What have we got this week from our listeners, Mr. Dawson?
We've got a message from Chris McGuinness, who sounds like a fun guy. I don't know why. It's just got a Guinness in it. Dear Critical Chris and Pedantic Pete, I'm going to Japan in early April for a Kyudo, a Japanese archery seminar, and a Yabusame, the horse archery experience in Nikko. Ooh. Since you've both recently been, what places would you recommend to stay and eat? Thank you for the podcast. Very much enjoy the show. I mean, horse archery in Nikko. What a beautiful place to do horse archery. If there is indeed a terrible place to do horse archery. What would be a weird place to do horse archery? That big...
Tokyo. In the streets of Shibuya.
Maybe that could replace the old Mario Kart bollocks that everybody hates. Like just horse archers. Yeah.
That would be a genuine...
Just firing off arrows.
Cultural experience in a way that the Mario Kart thing isn't. I haven't seen many Mario Karts recently. I'm guessing they still exist, but it's been unusually quiet. Do they still exist? But
I saw them before Christmas, so they're still kicking.
Yeah, I saw them a lot before Christmas, but I haven't seen them recently, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, horse archery. I've never done it. I know the Trash Taste guys did it on one of their specials, but I don't like riding horses after my experience on Journey Across Japan, where I sat on it and it tried to throw me off and kick me in the face.
Yeah,
and I got Joey got the stoic Olympic horse that had won competitions. Natsuki got a horse that was 1 week away from retirement and was just really old. And I got the horse that had never been ridden before. And I got to experience what was terrifying, genuinely terrifying, just riding this creature around who clearly didn't want me there. And maybe I was too heavy. too heavy for him.
Lasso it to get on it. You had to lasso it like Red Dead Redemption. You had to sort of calm it down.
But like to go from that, sitting on a horse, firing archery, it's kind of cool, but it's a bit of a leap of the imagination. I remember when I've seen people do it in Japan, the image you have of this is like riding in, like galloping in, like, and then just like firing off an arrow at high speed. It's not. I just see this people that I've seen do this, just like the horse just stops and plods along very slow, or they sort of fire off an arrow, and it doesn't look quite as good.
I'm sure the horse could take a couple of arrows because it's a very bony, long head. But I mean, you don't want to get an arrow in a horse's head. That would be very unwelcome.
Poor old horses. But if I'd known this existed, Nicor, I would have taken you in that ski, and my God, that would have been chaos beyond compare. Where did we eat in Nicor, though? We ate at a wonderful sushi restaurant on the high street.
We did, yes. Very
remember
good.
what it was called?
Oh.
That means no.
I can't know. I don't remember.
I can look it up if you read the next question. I will get you answers.
All right, all right, and then we'll get back. Do we eat anything else in Nicor? I can't remember now. It's usually built around... We had some dumplings.
Street food.
Was that in Nicor? Street food, right,
yeah.
Okay.
Not the greatest. It was pretty...
Oh, yes,
rich.
it was some kind of mad sort of street... It was very touristy street food, wasn't it? Yeah,
it wasn't great.
Meat in a bun or something. All right, next message goes to Alan from Ireland. Said that in a Scottish accent. Didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. Dear Canny Chris and Persepacious Pete, it's too early for that word. Get stuffed, Alan from Ireland. I'm glad I said it in a Scottish accent. I am travelling to Japan for the first time in August or September as a post-PhD treat to myself. I'll be travelling with my good friend Serjan. Despite knowing each other for the best part of 20 years, we've never actually met in real life. I live in Ireland, and he's from Serbia. I'm doing a Scottish accent again, for Serbia. As such, there was a lot of Balkans getting upset about you confusing Serbia with... Bosnia, was it? And Kosovo last week. Yeah, and the meat stuff as well. Crap. You are in internet jail at the moment, Sunshine.
Apologies.
As such, our first meeting will be in Tokyo itself. Where do you suggest we meet? Some well-known landmark? A bar? Lost Bar, obviously. Or somewhere else you think might suitably kickstart our adventure? Thanks for your help with this, guys. Alan from Ireland. If I happen to end up in a bath somewhere minus a kidney, I won't be very impressed. Hey, that might just be what Serjan's into. He might be a big Serbian kidney lord. He wants your kidneys. That's why he befriended you. He's a confidence trickster, for crying out loud, Alan. Kidney Lord. Yeah.
I mean, it depends what time of day, doesn't it? If it's the afternoon, I like Yoyogi Park, having a stroll around there.
Yeah.
Or Ueno Park, or maybe a market like Amayokacho Market in Ueno. Lost Bar's good because it opens at like 2 or 3. I forget. Yeah. I think it's 2 o'clock, isn't it? It opens quite early. 2. And you could go in there, have a cheeky drink, and then go off for a stroll around Shibuya, and then come back and have another drink later before dinner. So Lost Bar gets my vote.
And then have another drink after dinner.
And then another drink.
Just drink.
Go to Rockaholic with Pete Donaldson.
Rockaholic with me. Yeah. I think it's important when you're meeting someone for the first time for purely platonic reasons, you cannot make it look like a date. So maybe Lost Bar is a good move rather than Yoyogi Park because it's just too beautiful in there.
Yeah.
I would say.
I think so. It's nice. Honestly, I know it sounds a bit douchey to bring up my own bar, but it is a cool place to swing by for a drink or two and then go off and do something else. I found out the sushi restaurant is called, and this is the one in Nicor that we went to in Natsuki that was exceptional. It was called Komekichi Kozushi. Komekichi. Literally, kome means rice, kichi means good fortune. So, rice good fortune sushi. And it was good, a little bit pricey, but the sushi was very high quality, and we had a wonderful meal there on the floor on the tatami mats. So Komekichi Kozushi, and it's quite clear Tobu Nikko train station. It's like a 2-minute walk from there. So give it a shot. We got one last question from our good friend Kieran from England or the UK, and he says to Chris and Pete, I've been wanting to go to Japan for years now, and I'm considering joining a guided tour. As an inexperienced traveller, I think this seems to tick all the boxes. From your two worldly perspectives, are there any downsides for choosing this option? Thanks for keeping us entertained. All the best. Kieran from the UK. Pete, you've never done a tour, have you? You're not a tour man.
No, I've never been a tour guy. But I as I get older, I sort of realise that they're actually quite good. Like they are actually quite good because they get you to see all of the things that you need to see in as efficient as a time as possible, really. So I'm definitely not against them. But before I was like, I'll find my own way. I'll do my... And then because I'm so shy, I just won't do the things that the tour guide will make us do. So, yeah.
Too shy.
Do the tour. Too shy. Do the tour, for crying out loud.
I'm not so sure. I was a guided tour man the other day. I did a Premiere 2 live stream. And Premiere Pete has been doing all sorts. Actually, I'll get into that in the next podcast. I'll talk about that at length. But I did see a tour operating in Asakusa, and there was just too many people. There was like 10 people on one guide. I just thought, it's not that engaging or fun. I like it if it's like one-on-one or somebody who's like guiding you as a family, maybe. But when it gets into tour group stuff, I just find it a bit. But you know, if you're an older person, it does work. A good friend of mine, cameraman Paul, his mum came over and she joined a tour and she got on with everyone, and it sort of made the trip more fun, having folks to experience Japan with. So depends on your age, depends what you want to do. I'm not wholly against it. It just doesn't fit my personality. But maybe there's like other things like Magical Trip or something, which sounds like a drug-taking experience, but it's like a bar tour, bar hopping thing. There's lots of bar hopping tours in Tokyo, and maybe that's something I'd recommend.
Do they have those duck buses that you used to see around London quite a lot? You never see that. Maybe I just haven't spent that much time in London lately. But for the longest time, you had that duck bus that used to go into the water. Except that I don't think they did used to go in the water in the end. Do you remember? Like
that's just drunk driving. It's just a drunk driver going, "Oh no, I'm losing control on Westminster Bridge."
It was a set of like three or four like yellow sort of ships, basically. With a hull, but also had wheels, and then it would just go in the water, James Bond style, and just start swimming around. But I never saw one on the water itself. They were always very much resident on the roads, and they look really inefficient.
You just reminded me of a nightmare I had last night. I think I was on a duck bus in my dream.
Oh, what?
Or
That's
a boat.
Crazy.
It might have been. Oh, it was a boat or something. Anyway, I was in the sea and it was just sinking, and that was my dream. It felt like a metaphor for my career, but it was terrifying. Right, okay. It's terrifying. And as the boat went under, I woke up and realised I had a dentist appointment, and that was how my day started.
Oh, that's horrible. That is
I know, right? But on the subject of touring Japan, we do have some good videos, like how to spend 14 days in Japan and how to spend 21 days in Japan, and let those help you. Let those guide you on your trip around the country. But for now, guys, keep the stories, questions, comments coming in to Abroad Japan Podcast at gmail.com, and we'll be back later in the week to do it all over again. But for now, have yourself a great few days, and we'll see you right back here to do it all over again on the Abroad Japan Podcast with Agent Krasnov, Mr. Dawson himself. See you later.